Thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Sure thing.
So let's get started. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and about how you started paddling?
Okay, my name is Jeff Wong. I have been paddling for since 2005. Um, I had a buddy who he asked me to join his team for this sport that I've never heard of, uh, but I didn't join his team. I had another buddy who I've known for a very long time tell me 6 months later that he was starting a dragon boat team, and to and if I wanted to join and help him grow this team. And I've never done any kind of paddling before. I was a basketball player, but I had broken my leg, and so I was looking for something different, and so I ended up joining his team. It was the Sea Dogs, and um, yeah, and that was like the start of me kind of getting into paddling. Yeah. Um, I didn't really get serious about paddling until maybe around 2014 or so. I I never knew anything about like the national team. I didn't know anything about the USDBF, and I heard a buddy had joined the ICF national team, and so I kind of tagged along. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I started meeting all these people around the country who had like-minded about wanting to get better in the sport, and yeah.
Where are the Sea Dogs based out of?
We were based out of Flushing, New York. Um, that first season was pretty, like, it was pretty ragtag. We didn't even practice at where all the teams train out of now. We only trained at the at Meadow Lake, which is where the Flushing race takes place. So we only practiced like once a week, but that was enough for the bug to bite, and I kind of got hooked from then. Yeah.
And then how did you move over to Catch 22?
Uh, I think, like most teams, the Sea Dogs had been. I've been with the team for. I think I moved over to Catch 22 in 2017. So I had been paddling for 10 to 12 years with the Sea Dogs, and with like any team that's been around that long, recruiting, uh, holding on to athletes, it's a difficult thing year to year. And our team had started to get older right around the same time as I was trying to get expand my own paddling, expand my horizons. Um, it was just one team dying, and then finding me trying to find the avenue to expand my own paddling.
Why did you pick Catch 22?
Well, that's a good question. Uh, I think at the time I already had a couple of friends on Catch, close friends, and so when it just seemed like a good idea for me to kind of tag along. There were a few teams that I would say were competitive at the time. Um, DCH was, has always been like this force in New York, and but I didn't really have any close friends on DCH, and so me going over to Catch just felt like a natural fit.
And then how did
Yeah.
you get into coaching?
I When I was with the Sea Dogs, I captained the team for probably like 5 or 6, no, longer than that, for a few years, like 7 or 8 years. And I guess part of, being a captain, you do take on some roles, for coaching. Um, and I think in another lifetime, I probably could have been a teacher. I've always really enjoyed that aspect of anything, like, in other aspects of my life. Um, and and I think this was kind of a natural avenue for me to teach paddling, especially something I'm passionate about. It made it very easy for me to kind of want to uh, infect other people with, like things that I'm passionate about.
Mhm.
And so I think, and also I think as I was getting older, everyone on the team was younger than me. So, I would get a lot of questions about paddling. And so I think age was another thing that
You
factored
were the
into me
elder.
coaching. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just me being old.
Cool. I mean, you don't look it. Do you mind sharing your age?
I turned 46 in May. So yeah, I'm on the wrong side of 40.
You're well on your way to senior B, but that's a good category. So,
Yeah.
can you tell me about a favorite paddling moment that you've had, whether it was something that happened at a practice or a race or something with a buddy who's a paddler, or like maybe a trip that was really fun?
Uh, a favorite paddling moment. I hmm. I think one of the things that I guess that stand out in my head uh, is making the senior A team, and time trialing. And I never like I made the Thailand cycle, but my goal was not actually to make that cycle. I was actually hoping to make the following cycle in Hong Kong, which is because that's where my folks are from.
Hmm.
And so trying out for Thailand was just just to build experience and get more knowledge on what time trialing in an outrigger canoe is like, and in the canal that we time trial in. Uh, and but I guess I was doing a good job of training, and I put up a pretty good time that day, and that kind of surprised me, I guess, that I did as well as I did on that day. And so that whole process of making the team and then going to Worlds, and I guess the first podium was silver in the 2K. Um, like when I think back to that whole process, that like all the memories are kind of like swirling in my head. And um, I re- it was such a defining time for me because I had never thought I could make the team, or I didn't think I was on that level. And then to make the team and then stand on the podium, that it was like this 2 3 month process from time trialing to getting on the team, and then standing there in the podium was pretty surreal for me. So that was wasn't one, I guess it wasn't one moment,
Hmm.
uh but it was in my head, like all those things just kind of are this one
Full
big memory.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was a huge experience. And it's funny, like that is seems like for a lot of people like would be a huge thing. The other memory that that really hangs in my head is a much smaller moment. Is the day that I received the shipment of my outrigger canoe, and I remember my canoe was outside the boathouse that I was going to store it in on 79th Street off the Hudson River. and my canoe was sitting on the grass, and I remember just staring at it, probably like for 30 minutes, just like, wow, I bought one of these things. Yeah.
Would you say that after your whole experience in Thailand, like you kind of came in with this mindset in the trials, like, oh, like I don't think I'm gonna make it. I'm just gonna, give it a try. But then afterward, after you like, you're flying home and then like returning to paddling in New York, like how did you feel after?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that, for one, it was like a huge exhale because it had been so, the training leading up to Worlds was so, your focus is so narrow, and you're grinding out your training, and like so many other aspects of your life, you're kind of just, you know, putting to the side for, for the moment. And it was almost um, like kind of eye opening that there are all these things that kind of been pushing to the side. My work, like for work, they were super supportive, and they knew that I would be training in the mornings. They were cool with me coming into work late, and everyone was cheering me on at work. And when I got back to work, it was like, oh, there's all these things that they allowed me to push to the side and not, not have to focus on. But I think one thing that I took away uh, from it is, when I was on my way back, is I think there are a lot of times when we're doing things where you have a pretty good idea in your own mind that um, that you're doing something correctly, or but or you're doing it right, but it's not until these kind of moments, like making the team, and where there's like a certain validation to what you're doing, because I I didn't really have, I was pretty much coaching myself, on the lead up to my time trial, and so I was kind of pouring through uh, books and websites about training, and most of it, I would say, wasn't even paddling related. A lot of it was, my background in sports. I started in high school. I was a sprinter. I was a track and field. I was into track and field. I was a hurdler, and I took a lot of the stuff that I did in high school. Uh, the types of training I did, I would kind of adapt, the stuff I did on track to um, paddling. Not, not the technical stuff, obviously, but
But like the intervals and like the periodization and everything, right?
yes, exactly, exactly. I always tell the story uh, of my, like me becoming a hurdler in high school. I'm 5'8", so I should not be hurdling. I'm not the correct height to hurdle. I have to jump over the hurdles. Meanwhile, everyone's kind of just actually hurling. And I remember my coach didn't know much about hurdling himself, and so I had to. In high school, I started reading up on hurdling and technique, and uh, I had to become very, very technical um, in how I approach hurdling, so that I can maximize any limitation, like my body. And try to overcome any limitations I had. And New York City track and field is pretty, it's loaded. There's a lot of incredible athletes and great hurdlers. In senior year, I in the outdoor championships, I made finals for hurdling, and I remember thinking like, wow, that's crazy. Like that was a validation I needed then, that okay, I'm doing something right. And like I took a lot of that stuff, that kind of mentality, to my own paddling. Um, when I'm training and I'm looking for something, I might not take it from you know um, something I learned in paddling. It might be from some other sport, some other coach, uh, and that kind of validation is like it's so big, so rewarding when you do something and you're so you might not be certain whether that's going to be successful, and then to see it play out the way it does and become successful in what you're trying to do. uh yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but like yeah,
Yeah, I think
that
it
that
did for sure. I was wondering, like, what books and websites were you using to help yourself? Because that might be helpful for someone else who's like you, who is kind of on their own and has to coach themselves to make a national team.
yeah. I was pouring through so many different I, I I started off with coaching with I'm sorry, programming for track and field events that were um, the amount of time that I was expecting to train for. So, for instance, the 500-meter time trial, you're looking at like 2.5 minutes on the water, that kind of effort. So I remember in track and field, 2-minute piece is about a half mile. So I started to search for programs for half mile uh, focuses, and I don't know if I don't know the exact sites I went to. I basically went to every site that had where a coach would actually talk about how they would program their season and the types of workouts they did, and I tried to adapt that to how I would train on the water. Um, uh, One big thing that I did take was from I don't remember his name. It was the coach for Michael Johnson. He was the 400-meter champion at the '96 Olympics, and he set a world record at those Olympics, a world record that stood for I think until recently, maybe a few years ago. Um, and his coach developed certain training programs for the 400-meter, which is about a minute long event. And so I started to like piece together like Frankenstein, all these different um, like things to add to my training, and I think that I just kind of worked with what I knew. Um, a lot of the coaches that I would research that were paddling based were usually um, like outrigger coaches, or coach people who coach, like 10K, 20K, 30K races. And I realized that while there was a lot of benefit to training in that regard, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, and I couldn't find training programs specifically catered to what I was, aiming for. Uh, and so I just kind of went my own way. Because I felt like a lot of uh, dragon boat coaches and even like successful ones, I don't know if they had anyone that they could rely on themselves to like say like, oh, this is a how I should be training. A lot of the successful coaches, I feel like were making up their own programs as they saw fit. And so I figured that if that's how they got to where they were, they probably didn't have any, uh, you know, um, people that they could lean on to really teach them, and they had to self teach or self learn. I figured I could at least take what I knew and then kind of adapt it to paddling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome, especially because there's a lot of people that come into paddling from other sports. So why not use the knowledge that you have from other sports and apply it to paddling? Because all of like the energy systems in our bodies, it's the same no matter what sport. So,
Yep. Yeah.
there's scientifically proven ways of training those different systems. So might as
Hmm.
well, just use it.
Yeah. 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 I think rowing was another one that kind of I started to look into, and there's I would say that like of most of the water sports that I research, rowing is probably you probably have the most information there. So I tried to adapt a lot of that how they train to paddling. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Can you talk a little bit about being a paddler in the city,
Ooh,
an urban
this is
paddler?
a yeah, this is a topic that I talk about a lot with especially the guys on the team on catch. Um, Paddling in New York City is something that you really have to love. Like it has to be a real passion for you to be able to do in New York or do well in New York, because paddling it's strange that we're a city that's surrounded by water, and there's so little access to the water.
Hmm.
There isn't good storage for canoes. That's probably number one. That's probably the biggest hurdle for most people when they want to paddle on their own and buy a canoe for themselves or any other watercraft. Um, you really really need to love paddling to really get into it and to excel. So I know for myself, I really try to make access as easy as possible. If I really want paddling in New York to get bigger, to like it, for paddlers in the U.S., we know where all the hubs of like water sports are or paddling. You have like the Philadelphia, you have Florida, pretty much the entire state, California, um, but then you have these other small pockets like Chicago and New York. To get New York to be recognized as like another big hub for paddling, I feel like I need to be the change that I want to see. Right? If I want more people to get on water, if I want more people to be excited about paddling, I kind of have to make myself available and make whatever like make my own canoe available. Make I have a paddler at home, I need to make that available. I need to kind of use myself as a way to help infect people with that bug and get maybe hope that they you know become addicted to paddling the way I am. And I don't even care um if they stay with catch or they jump to another team. I've said this to my team many times that you know if you if I can get someone to love paddling and they do they paddle more in New York, that I've done my job. I don't care whether they stay with catch, because every team has a different personality, it has a different fit, and the fit might not be right for you here. But if and if you jump to another team, I have no problem with that. Um, I just want more uh, access to paddling, more people excited about paddling in New York. Um, yeah, um, I do. I have this thing that I do, which I think it drives my girlfriend crazy. But whenever I see like a posting somewhere of someone selling like a outrigger canoe or a surf ski or whatever, I start blasting it to everyone that I know, that's in New York. And I'm like, please bring this canoe to New York. Get more boats here. I've offered to buy with myself buy the boat so that at least it's here, and then I can later on sell it to someone else. And um, yeah, like I that's like I feel like when I was starting to learn about paddling outside of dragon boat, access to outrigger canoe was so difficult. Like if especially since I was on a team that where we didn't have anyone who is doing outrigger canoeing, and so now that I'm on the other side, I'm on a team that we have a lot of personal canoes on the team, and I know a lot more canoeists. I look at the people who are on teams that don't have access to canoes, or people who are interested in, you know, trying to expand their paddling and don't have a way to do it. And so like I want to grow that in New York. I have like this pie in the sky dream of one day starting a canoe club in New York, and trying to find a way to get a a boathouse somewhere to kind of agree to like letting me run like a canoe club and try to give access, you know, to more people. Um, but New York being what it is, it might be a
Yeah,
pie in the sky.
it's challenging because I mean the most access that there is to paddling in New York is like those free kayak things. Like they have one in Brooklyn. There's a couple, I guess, along the Hudson as well, and then there's the one in Hoboken, run out of Hoboken Cove, which also has like an outrigger canoe club. But yeah, like convincing either like a boathouse owner or like the city to allow you to run a club there, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, and like one of the uh, best places for flat, or it might be the only place for flat water paddling, is Flushing Bay in Queens, right next to LaGuardia Airport. And it seems like um, there could be less access to water. They're talking about building a tram, um, connecting the city to uh, LaGuardia Airport, which is great, but you know,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
kind
gonna
of
mess up
selfish
the
about
whole
it,
like water line there.
right? And I hope that it doesn't limit access to people wanting to get on the in the bay, because it's already so difficult to get to that location. We don't really need any more obstacles for
Mhm.
people.
I heard there was a rumor going around that if the marina closed in Flushing, that someone was going to try to move dragon boats like to the East River, like around Chinatown. Like that sounds terrifying.
Oh,
I like always look out
that
at the East River and it looks so horrifying.
I actually work at the seaport, which is downtown Manhattan, on right on the East River, and a few times I've walked out to the to the river like during lunch or something, and if you head out onto the East River when it's not like if you're not tracking the tides and you just head out onto the East River, you're not going to have a good time. Like the water is very strong in the East River, and definitely not good for dragon boats. You don't
No.
want to be in any kind of tippy craft on the East River.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the thought of that is terrifying.
Yeah. Would you say that paddling's changed your life?
Oh, I mean, totally. I mean, it's become my lifestyle. So that, that's putting it. That's definitely putting it lightly. Um, uh, I've always wanted, or I've always been into sports and athletics. So if it wasn't paddling, I would have found some other outlet. But um, but paddling is pretty much given me like an avenue to do a lot of stuff that I really love. The training, the working out, the competition for sure. Given that I've come from track and field, I love that line to line racing, and so that gives me like an avenue to do that. But like I said earlier, I've always been interested in teaching, so that gives me an it gave paddling gives me an outlet to do that as well. So it ticks a lot of boxes, for um, things that I want to do. And of course, with most people, why they join Dragon Boat, there's the social outlet, to meet, like right away, you join the team, you have at least 20 people that you can, get to know right away. And so, yeah, it's definitely changed my life. Uh, my girlfriend's not happy about it, but, it gives me a reason to travel and paddle, like, doing, I could do these two things that I love. She wishes our vacations weren't just paddling related. But I'm sure you probably agree with me. Like, what could be a better vacation is like one that, you can you can see new places and paddle in new places.
See, where
So
Dal and
yeah,
I don't have that problem because the only reason we travel is to paddle.
yeah. And like even me suggesting like a place to travel to vacation in, uh that's not paddling related. I feel like I'm forced to choose landlocked places that don't have like good access to water, just so that she knows that, oh, this is an actual vacation, not a paddling vacation. So we might do Italy, but like away from the coast.
Darn,
Yeah,
your
damn
plan
it.
is foiled.
Yeah. I mean, I think other aspects of my life that it's changed is uh, my my friends who are not into paddling, they know that I don't hang out in the summertime. They know during the summer my focus is somewhere else, and I'm not going to be reachable. I'm probably on the water somewhere. So with my other friends, I become like a winter friend.
I feel like my friends kind of know that about me. Like, don't like they can ask me to do things like in the summer, but usually my weekends are booked, or like even during the year too, when I like it's a Friday and they're like, let's go out. And I'm like, I have to wake up Saturday morning really early and go train. Like, sorry guys.
I'm glad my friends will still humor me and throw it out there that, oh, we're planning to do this in case you're free. And
Yeah, it feels nice to be included in at the same time, like,
even if I'm going to say no every time.
yeah, still can't go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep. So what's something that you want to see more of in paddling? And perhaps you kind of already answered this earlier, but some other areas I was kind of thinking of might be like collaboration across like certain groups, or like cultural preservation, growth in a certain area, etc.
Yeah. One thing I definitely have been trying to do since joining Catch is when I first joined or started dragon boat paddling, uh, in New York at least, it was very divisive. Like teams did not really uh, chat with one another, and there were some teams that did not. It was like they forbade you know their athletes, their paddlers from talking to other paddlers from other teams. Like I've actually seen people physically being pulled away uh, during like the flushing race while they were chatting with their friends who just happened to be on another team, and that never really made sense to me. Like like I've been in competitive sports since I was 12, and that's a part of the thing. You compete on the field, but you're always friends off of it. So seeing this kind of play out in New York, it always upset me, especially given that New York has never really been like like how difficult it is to paddle in New York, and also that we're not exactly the best place to paddle, the biggest paddling hub. uh, you know, so that has always been one of the things that I've wanted to change about New York, and that you know, I always try to reach out to people on other teams, and at the very least, like, you know, I try to not have a scowl on my face, and, you know, be approachable to people from other teams. I know people have told me that Catch 22 has a reputation about it, that you know, precedes us, and um, I think there's definitely a very we're very active on the team to try to uh, undo that and make everything more accessible. That's actually um, since I took over, we actually created pillars for the team, and one of the pillars is community, um, and I think part of probably why a lot of us on the team feel this way is because we did. A lot of us have started outrigger paddling, and there is a certain culture and community that exists in outrigger paddling. This idea of paddling ohana uh, that I want to see kind of spread and, you know, grow in Dragon Boat as well. Sharing of resources, sharing of paddlers, sharing of ideas. Um, I've told you know, coaches from other teams that I have no problem if you want to jump on my boat and hear how we practice, or if you want to pick my brain on how I program for the team, you know, because it's not like that stuff is a huge secret anyways. But I think, you know, to my earlier point, helping to grow the sport within New York, being divisive is not going to help that. It's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you all are taking that stance. And like, you'd mentioned like that Catch had a reputation that preceded it, but also like even in my time in New York, the team has changed so much. And I'm glad that you all are like taking the lead and, not sticking with what, has been done in the past. Cause yeah, like there's a resource scarcity. So we need to share in order to elevate the sport together. And it's a 20-person crew with a drummer and a steerer. So there's a huge aspect of teamwork, and it should be like across different teams as well, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, and having paddled now, you know, nationally, internationally, and meeting so many people from other places, you know, I really, you really get to see how other cities, um, you know, how they interact with other teams in their cities. There, there is a competitiveness. There are rivalries, um, because we are a sport, but there isn't this nastiness that I kind of sense, you know, when I first joined Dragon Boat in New York, and so like, why does it exist here and not other places? You know, I don't know. Maybe it's a New York, yeah, street mentality. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
was about to say it has something to do with us being New Yorkers and like fending for ourselves, but like you can't do that in Dragon Boat.
I've mentioned this to some, you know, of the guys on my team that we right now are probably carrying the torch in New York.
You
Um,
absolutely are.
but it's not so that we can. It's not so that we can be at that, you know, the top of the, you know, the perch here. It's so that other teams can feel that, you know, it's not that they can run their programs too, that it's not impossible, that if we can do it, then someone else can do it, and that they should be getting on water and, you know, trying to increase recruitment and things like that. It was, you know, kind of leading by example, and so yeah, that goes again to like the sharing resources thing, and I hope like do this interview. That's kind of why that was one of the reasons why when you asked, but I agreed to doing it. That was one of the big things for me, is I'm hoping to bring certain awareness to the teams in New York that, you know, you should keep, don't let your team die. Like, keep pushing to build the team and try to, build the sport that we all love. And that, that hopefully that, seeing us, strive and push and, grow, that they will also do the same. And, if there's anyone out there that wants our help, if they need, some coaching, or, you just want time in a boat, we have a couple of, we run 2 boat practices every practice, and we might have seats we might have open seats that just come and please, use the resources that we have in New York.
That's a great mindset to have. So there's 2 more questions, and they might be slightly simpler, maybe not. But the first one is, what's your favorite post paddling meal ever? If you could pick one meal.
Ever.
Ever.
Wow. Ever.
Or if there's like a thing that you're like, after paddling, you're like, I gotta have a cha su fan or something.
I think the best meal that I've ever had post paddling was probably at the hotel in Thailand after the first day of racing, and I had a silver medal from World Championships in my hand, and we went. I don't even remember what I ate. I just remember sitting there in this afterglow. I don't think my butt was touching the seat. I think I was floating, and I was eating and staring at the medal. So I don't know what it was. I ate something good, but it was, but yeah, just sitting there like, wow, I won a medal at Worlds, and yeah, that was one of my favorite meals.
All right, great. And then one final question. If you had one piece of advice for any young aspiring paddler, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think, and this isn't just for paddling, but I tell new paddlers to be a sponge. That there's so much to learn in when you want to be a good paddler, and there are so many different ways to get there. And there's, like, even talking about technique, there is no real one technique that we can all point to that we can say like, oh, that is the technique you should use. I've been paddling for 17 years, and I feel like there's so much I still don't know about paddling. So be a sponge and learn, absorb. There are no absolutes in life, but especially in paddling, there's no exact way to do something. Take everything that anyone tells you and teaches you and adapt it to your own, and constantly learn. Yeah, that's the best advice I can give. And the second thing is, try to get yourself on water. Gotta get on water. No matter how much you learn, you gotta apply, make it practical.
Yeah, time in the
Even if
boat.
you have, yeah, even if you have to be a little pushy about it, get your butt onto a boat and get onto water.
Yeah, or
So
like and also like be willing to make the sacrifices like we have to do in New York. Like if
yep,
your water is
yep.
an hour and 15 minutes plus a 10-minute walk away, then do it.
Yeah. Like anything that you're passionate about, you require some level of sacrifice. And if it becomes part of your lifestyle, it's not a sacrifice anymore. It just, that's just part of your life.
Yeah.
But that's advice for anything that you want to do well in and, accomplish. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for taking the time to speak with me today.
No, thank you for reaching out to me.
Yeah, and so
Really flattered.
hopefully lots of New York paddlers see this and then they start hitting up Jeff to join Catch 22.
or build your own teams, and it's not just about catch, but if you want to join catch, We're always there's always an open seat for you.